Welcome, dear listeners, to The Shadow Behind You. I am your host, the unseen guardian of histories long buried, the voice that revives the dead and the damned from their eternal silence. In this realm, we do not merely recount tales, we immerse ourselves in them, feeling the cold grip of forgotten terrors wrap around our throats. Tonight, we transport ourselves back to the year 1874, to the misty gas-lit streets of Springfield, Illinois, a place where the spirit of Abraham Lincoln still wandered the avenues, his assassination a fresh scar on the nation's soul, only 9 years old. But our journey isn't into the annals of political glory or national mourning. No, we delve into something far more visceral, more primal: the Gilmore Hotel and its bizarre, blood-soaked tradition of serving guests raw meat. Picture this, if you dare. It's a crisp October evening in Springfield. The leaves have turned to shades of rust and gold, crunching underfoot like brittle bones. The air hangs heavy with the fog rolling in from the Sangamon River, mingling with the acrid smoke from chimneys and the distant lowing of cattle from the stockyards that fed the growing appetite of a nation on the cusp of industrialization. Gas lamps line the streets, their flames dancing erratically, casting elongated shadows that twist and wreathe as if alive. Carriages rattle by, horses' hooves clopping against the cobblestones in a rhythm that echoes like a heartbeat, steady at first, then quickening with unease. Springfield in 1874 was a city in transition, a blend of rural charm and urban ambition. As the capital of Illinois, it bustled with lawmakers, merchants, and travelers drawn by the promise of opportunity. The railroads had transformed it into a hub, with trains whistling in from Chicago and St. Louis, bringing with them weary souls seeking rest. Amid this backdrop rose the Gilmore Hotel, a structure that seemed to emerge from the ground like a monument to hidden sins. Constructed in the early months of that year, it stood proudly, perhaps too proudly, at the intersection of 4th and Jefferson Streets. Its red brick exterior was accented with intricate iron balconies, and its tall windows gazed out like unblinking eyes, reflecting the flickering lights of the city. The man behind this edifice was Elias Gilmore, a figure as enigmatic as the hotel itself. Tall and lean, with a face carved by years of hardship, Elias had arrived in Springfield in 1872, his past a tapestry of rumors and half-truths. Some said he hailed from the gold rush towns of California, where he amassed a fortune not through panning rivers, but through darker dealings, perhaps gambling, or worse, occult pacts sealed under starless skies. Others whispered of his time in the Civil War, not as a soldier, but as a shadowy advisor, dabbling in spiritualism to sway battles. His eyes, a piercing gray that could pin you in place, held secrets that made even the boldest avert their gaze. Elias spoke sparingly of his origins, only hinting that the hotel was his atonement, a place where the hungry could be fed in ways beyond the ordinary. The grand opening of the Gilmore Hotel was an event etched in local memory, though many later wished to forget it. Invitations, embossed with gold leaf, were sent to Springfield's elite state senators with their powdered wives, prosperous merchants flaunting silk cravats, and even distant relatives of Lincoln's inner circle, drawn by curiosity. The lobby was a masterpiece of Victorian opulence, walls paneled in dark mahogany that absorbed light like a void, crystal chandeliers suspended overhead, their prisms scattering rainbows that seemed oddly blood-tinged in the candlelight. Thick Persian rugs muffled footsteps, creating an unnatural quiet, broken only by the pop of champagne corks and the murmur of polite conversation. The air was scented with lavender and rosewater, but underlying it was a faint, coppery note, as if the building itself bled. As guests mingled, Elias moved among them like a spectre, his black frock coat blending with the shadows. He greeted each with a firm handshake and a smile that revealed teeth too white, too sharp. The evening's menu was lavish oysters on ice, roasted pheasant with cranberry glaze, and decadent pastries dusted with sugar. But as the hour grew late and the moon climbed high, Elias called for silence. The room fell hush, the only sound the ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner, its pendulum swinging like a scythe. "My dear friends," Elias began, his voice a low timbre that resonated in the chest. The Gilmore Hotel is more than a place of rest. It is a gateway to our true selves. In honor of traditions passed down through generations, we offer a special delicacy to those who seek deeper nourishment. With a gesture, waiters in crisp uniforms unveiled silver platters, revealing not cooked delicacies, but raw meat, slabs of beef, fresh from the abattoir, their surfaces glistening with moisture, marbled veins of fat weaving through the crimson flesh like rivers of blood. No fire had touched them, they were presented as is, with only a scattering of sea salt and fresh herbs to accentuate their natural state. The reaction was mixed. Some laughed nervously, dismissing it as an eccentric gimmick, a nod to the raw eating habits of sailors or frontiersmen who consumed liver straight from the kill to stave off scurvy. Others, intrigued by the novelty, partook tentatively, the meat cool and yielding under their teeth, its flavor exploding in a burst of iron and earth. "This is the essence of vitality," Elias explained to a cluster of wide-eyed guests, unadulterated by flame, preserving the life force that cooked food destroys. "My ancestors survived plagues and famines by embracing this purity. It wards off evil, awakens the spirit." But as the night deepened, unease crept in. One guest, a young attorney named Theodore Lang, reported a sudden vision after his first bite, a flash of wolves tearing into prey under a full moon. He shook it off as too much wine, but others whispered of similar disturbances. Dreams that night of endless fields soaked in red, of feasts where the meat writhed as if alive. By morning, a few guests had departed early, their faces pale, complaining of indigestion or nightmares. Yet others stayed, drawn back to the dining hall for more, their eyes holding a new, hungry gleam. Why raw meat? In an era of refinement, where etiquette books dictated every fork's placement, this seemed a deliberate regression, a challenge to societal norms. Elias claimed it stemmed from his Irish heritage, where during the Great Famine, raw consumption was a desperate act of survival, imbued with mystical significance, blood as a conduit to the otherworld. But darker tales circulated during the war. Elias had allegedly consulted with mediums, offering raw offerings to spirits for victory. Springfield, with its proximity to Lincoln's grave, was fertile ground for such beliefs. Seances were common, and the line between history and haunting blurred. As you listen now, in the safety of your home, feel the temperature drop. Is that a draft, or the breath of Elias himself, urging you to taste? The Gilmore Hotel's doors are open in our minds, and the feast awaits. What compelled guests to return? What horrors hid in the meat's raw heart? And does the curse endure, lurking in modern shadows? Join me as we descend deeper, layer by layer, into this macabre mystery. The shadow behind you grows longer and hungrier. We cross the threshold now, stepping into the Gilmore Hotel's lobby on that inaugural evening in May 1874, when the air was still warm with spring's promise, but already tinged with the foreboding of secrets yet to unfold. The polished marble floors reflected the glow of the chandeliers, creating illusions of depth that made one feel as if walking on water, or perhaps blood. Elias Gilmore stood behind the reception desk, his ledger open, quill in hand, inscribing names with flourishes that looked like ancient runes. His presence was commanding, his gaunt frame towering, and his voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of unspoken histories. The first guest to check in was Amelia Hargrove, a 28-year-old widow from Chicago, her black mourning dress rustling like dry leaves as she approached. Amelia's husband had perished in a horrific train derailment the previous year, leaving her adrift in grief. She had come to Springfield on the advice of a spiritualist friend who claimed the city's energies, lingering from Lincoln's era, could mend broken spirits. "A room for one, please," she said, her voice soft but steady. Elias's eyes lingered on her, assessing as if peering into her soul. "Of course, madam," he replied, handing her a key engraved with a curious symbol, a coiled serpent devouring its tail. "You appear in need of restoration. Our house special will serve you well." Ascending the grand staircase, Amelia's hand trailed the banister, smooth oak warmed by countless touches. Her room 207 was a haven of luxury, a four-poster bed draped in rich crimson velvet that seemed to absorb light, a fireplace crackling with fresh logs, and walls adorned with wallpaper featuring intricate vines that, in the flickering light, appeared to pulse and grow. On the bedside table sat a crystal decanter of deep red port, accompanied by a note in Elias's precise handwriting. "Partake of the essence, and let it awaken what slumbers within." She poured a glass, the liquid thick and viscous, its taste oddly metallic, like blood mixed with wine. Shaking off the unease, she dressed for dinner and descended to the dining hall. The hall was a symphony of elegance. Tables set with bone china and sterling silver, the air fragrant with herbs and spices. Guests filled the room. Senator Harlan Thorpe, a portly man with a booming laugh and mutton chop whiskers, there to lobby for railroad expansions. Dr. Evelyn Cartwright, a pioneering female physician from Boston, her sharp features framed by spectacles, studying the emerging field of phrenology and the mind's hidden depths, and the enigmatic Mr. Voss, a traveler with a heavy accent suggesting Transylvanian roots, his dark cloak and piercing stare evoking old-world mysteries. Conversation flowed like the wine, politics, the latest in spiritualism, tales of the West's untamed frontiers. As the main courses were cleared, the mood shifted. The gas lamps were dimmed, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Elias rose from his seat at the head table, his silhouette elongated like a demon's. "Honored guests," he intoned, his words wrapping around the room like fog. "It is time to honor the old ways. In an age of machines and progress, we forget our roots, the raw power that sustains us." At his signal, waiters entered bearing domed platters, lifting the covers to reveal the night's true, offering raw beef, sourced that morning from Springfield's bustling stockyards. The meat was artfully arranged, thin slices fanned out like petals, their surfaces dewy, the scent raw and primal, evoking the slaughterhouse's grim reality. Guests reacted with a mix of curiosity and revulsion. Senator Thorpe, ever the adventurer, chuckled and took a generous portion, chewing thoughtfully, the juice dribbling down his chin. "By Jove, it's invigorating!" he exclaimed, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. Dr. Cartwright approached it scientifically, slicing a small piece and noting in her mind the texture, the flavor, salty, metallic, with an undercurrent of sweetness from the animal's last meal. "Fascinating," she murmured. "The vital essences preserved, perhaps holding curative properties." Mr. Voss, however, ate with reverence, his movements slow, almost ritualistic, as if communing with ancestors. Amelia, seated nearby, hesitated. The meat's appearance unsettled her, reminding her of the accident site where blood had stained the rails. But under Elias's encouraging gaze, she took a bite. It was cool, tender, exploding on her tongue with flavors she couldn't name. Life itself, unfiltered. That night, as she lay in bed, the room's vines seeming to creep closer, dreams assailed her vast prairies under a crimson sky. Packs of shadowy figures feasting on still, warm carcasses, their howls mingling with her own suppressed cries. In the days that followed, the hotel's routine took on a sinister rhythm. Breakfasts were conventional, eggs, toast, coffee, but dinners invariably featured the raw option for select guests. Elias chose them carefully, observing behaviors, listening to conversations. Those who accepted reported heightened senses, colors brighter, sounds sharper, appetites insatiable. Theodore Lang, the attorney, returned for more, his once jovial demeanor turning obsessive, sketching symbols from his dreams in the hotel's guest book. Whispers spread through Springfield's taverns and parlors. A traveling salesman, Mr. Josiah Reed, checked in mid-June, robust and cheerful. After partaking, he was found the next morning in his room, rocking in a corner, muttering about the red hunger. He left town hastily, never to return. Locals began avoiding the hotel, crossing to the other side of the street, claiming the building cast an unnaturally long shadow even at noon. Elias's past surfaced in fragments, pieced together by curious journalists. Born in 1820 to impoverished Irish immigrants in New York, he had ventured west during the 1849 gold rush, not as a miner, but as a supplier of essentials. including raw game to starving prospectors. Encounters with native tribes, particularly the Plains Indians, introduced him to rituals where raw heart consumption granted visions or strength. During the Civil War, he allegedly operated in the shadows, providing spiritual aid to Union generals, raw offerings part of census to summon fallen soldiers' guidance. One stormy evening in July, Amelia sought Elias in the hotel's library, a room lined with leather-bound volumes on alchemy, folklore, and the occult. Titles like The Key of Solomon and The Book of the Dead. Rain lashed the windows, thunder rumbling like distant artillery. What is this tradition truly? She demanded, her hands trembling. Elias, seated by the fire, its flames reflecting in his eyes, smiled faintly. It is liberation, my dear. Fire tames but raw reveals the beast within, the divine spark. My family survived the famine by embracing it. Now I share that gift. As guests transformed, skins paling, eyes sharpening, cravings deepening, the hotel's underbelly stirred. From the basement came odd noises, low moos, sharp cries, the drip of liquids. The staff, once ordinary, moved with unnatural silence, their faces mask-like. The stage was set for escalation, the raw meat not just food, but a catalyst for something ancient and voracious. By late summer 1874, as the heat gave way to cooler winds, the Gilmore Hotel's exterior remained a beacon of Victorian grandeur, but inside, the raw meat tradition had metastasized into a cult-like obsession. Guests who had tasted the offerings found themselves bound, returning nightly, their bodies craving what their minds feared. Those who resisted faced subtle coercions, spoiled cooked meals, rooms growing inexplicably cold, or hallucinations that drove them to the platters. The hotel's register, once a simple log, became a record of transformations, names crossed out with red ink, notations like "or wakened" or "consumed." Amelia Hargrove, now a shadow of her former self, her cheeks hollowed and eyes, fever bright, had become part of the inner circle, Elias's elite initiates. Her dreams had evolved into waking visions, glimpses of ancestral memories, famines where survivors gnawed on raw flesh to summon strength from the earth. One morning, she awoke to find a fresh sliver of meat on her pillow, still warm, its scent intoxicating. Terrified yet compelled, she consumed it, feeling a surge of energy that made her feel invincible and trapped. Senator Thorpe had fully embraced the ritual, his political machinations sharpened by a ruthless edge. He lobbied with ferocity, rumors swirling of blackmail involving, secrets revealed in the red. Dr. Cartwright documented the changes in a journal hidden under her mattress: increased heart rate, enhanced night vision, aversion to sunlight and cooked foods. The raw essence alters the humors, she wrote, her handwriting growing erratic. It unlocks doors in the mind, but what enters? Mr. Voss, revealing his true name as Vladimir Voss, confided in Amelia during a midnight stroll in the hotel's garden, where thorny roses bloomed unnaturally red. "In my homeland," he whispered, "the moon casting his face in pallor, we call it the Strigoi feast, raw blood to summon the undead. Elias has tapped something similar, a curse from his war days." He spoke of Elias's pact with dark forces, offering raw hearts in exchange for immortality. The hotel a conduit to feed the entity. The turning point came during the harvest moon banquet in September, when the sky bled orange and winds howled like banshees. Elias assembled the inner circle in the ballroom, its mirrors reflecting infinite versions of the scene, distorting faces into grotesque masks. Chandeliers were extinguished, replaced by torches that smoked with acrid, meaty scent. Platters arrived overflowing with variety, not just beef, but raw liver slick with bile, heart still faintly twitching, kidneys veined like marble. "Tonight we transcend," Elias proclaimed, his voice echoing. As they feasted, fingers sticky with gore, the storm outside raged, lightning illuminating flashes of horror. Senator Thorpe, bloated and wild-eyed, accused Elias of diluting the essence, withholding the purest source. "I demand the true blood," he bellowed, lunging with a carving knife. Elias sidestepped, and Thorpe collapsed, writhing, blood foaming from his mouth. Poisoned, or perhaps the curse rejecting him. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed, some fleeing, others descending into frenzy. tearing at the meat with teeth alone. Dr. Cartwright barricaded herself in her room, but shadows gathered at the door's base, whispering promises of knowledge. "Join or perish," they hissed. Amelia, horrified, followed Voss to the basement stairs, hidden behind a false panel in the pantry. The descent was a journey into hell, steps slick with moisture, air thickening with the reek of decay and iron, walls damp and pulsing as if alive. Torchlight revealed the truth. A vast chamber, stone floors stained dark, an altar at the center where Elias chanted in a tongue ancient and guttural, surrounded by robed figures chanting in unison. On the altar lay not cattle, but a human, a street urchin reported missing days prior, his body prepared like the platters above, flesh sliced precisely. "The source," Voss gasped. "When animals suffice no longer, the curse demands more." Elias turned, his eyes now abyssal voids, teeth elongated in the light. "You see now," he said, voice multilayered. "Life feeds life. Join the eternal feast." A desperate escape unfolded. Voss fought the robes, his cries echoing as claws raked him. Amelia fled upward, corridors twisting illogically, rooms opening to scenes of depravity. Guests in orgies of consumption, walls weeping blood, mirrors showing reflections with fanged grins. Bursting into the storm-soaked night, she ran, but the hunger followed, a seed planted deep. Winter brought the hotel's downfall. Disappearances piled up, a local sheriff's investigation stymied by bribes from Circle members. Elias disappeared during a blizzard, the hotel left empty, yet witnesses swore to lights in windows, moans from within. By 1880, it was demolished, rubble carted away, but the site remained barren, grass refusing to grow. The Gilmore's legacy endures in whispers, a family line cursed with cravings, a city haunted by primal urges under full moons. To fully grasp the dread woven into the Gilmore Hotel's tale, we must excavate the historical and cultural bedrock of 1874 Springfield, a city poised between remembrance and reinvention. Springfield, designated Illinois' capital in 1839 largely due to Lincoln's influence, was by 1874 a thriving metropolis of about 20,000 souls. Lincoln's legacy loomed large. His home on 8th Street was a pilgrimage site, and the completion of his tomb in Oak Ridge Cemetery that year drew thousands, fostering an atmosphere ripe for spiritualism and ghost stories. The city pulsed with activity, the Illinois State House buzzed with debates on Reconstruction, while railroads like the Chicago and Alton brought commerce and transience. The Panic of 1873 had ravaged the economy, yet Springfield weathered it through government stability and agriculture. Hotels were essential, serving as social hubs. The Leland Hotel, opened in 1867, hosted dignitaries, while smaller inns catered to travelers. The meat industry was ascendant. Chicago's Union Stock Yards, operational since 1865, shipped beef nationwide via rail, with Springfield's local yards contributing. By 1874, annual U.S. cattle slaughter exceeded 5 million, symbolizing industrial might but also exploitation. Workers toiled in squalor, animals in agony. Raw meat consumption had deep roots. In Native American cultures, tribes like the Lakota ate raw liver post-hunt for nutrients, rituals linking it to spirit animals. European folklore added layers. Irish tales from the 1845-1852 famine describe raw potato or flesh eating for survival, sometimes tied to fairy curses. In Romania, vampire legends involved raw blood to sustain undeath. Medically, 19th-century physicians prescribed raw beef for anemia or consumption tuberculosis, inspired by vitalism theories, where life force resided in uncooked foods. The 1870s saw raw diets gain traction among health fads, precursor to modern raw food movements. Victorian occultism amplified the eerie. Post-Civil War grief spawned spiritualism. Mary Todd Lincoln held seances in Springfield, consulting mediums to contact her sons. The era's fascination with the macabre included mummy unwrappings and phrenology, where skull shapes revealed character. Dr. Cartwright's interest mirrors this. Curses were commonplace in folklore, Egyptian tomb curses popularized by 1872's discovery of artifacts, or Native American mound curses near Springfield. Culturally, the Gilmore echoes institutional haunts. Hotels as transient spaces bred legends. The 1850s Knickerbocker Hotel in New York had ghost stories, while Springfield's own historic sites, like the old state capitol, whispered of apparitions. The raw tradition critiques societal hungers. Post-war America devoured resources, displacing natives. 1874's Red River War, exploiting immigrants. Meat scandals foreshadowed Upton Sinclair's 1906 The Jungle, revealing tainted products. Blending fact and folklore. The 1874 exhumation scandals in local cemeteries for medical schools parallel body desecration. Immigrant waves brought pagan rites, fueling xenophobia, leading to 1908 Springfield race riot. Educational yet unsettling, this context authenticates the tale, suggesting the Gilmore's curse as metaphor for buried traumas resurfacing. Peeling back the flesh of the Gilmore story reveals a skeleton of symbols, psychologies, and societal critiques that resonate with humanity's darkest recesses. The raw meat serves as a potent metaphor for consumption in its rawest form. Not just physical sustenance, but the devouring of innocence, identity, and morality. Psychologically, it aligns with Sigmund Freud's tripartite mind. The Ide's primal drives unleashed without the superego's civilizing fire, transforming guests into vessels of unchecked desire. Elias, as archetypal trickster host, subverts hospitality's sanctity, turning the hotel into a Freudian uncanny home where familiar comforts hide horrors. Thematically, the tale interrogates cultural trauma. In 1874's post-Civil War America, raw wounds of division festered. Slavery's abolition left racial tensions, economic disparities. The meat industry mirrored capitalism's rapacity, consuming labor and land, echoing Karl Marx's commodification of human essence. The curse symbolizes generational inheritance, forgotten bloodlines passing down hungers, akin to epigenetic trauma where ancestors' sufferings manifest in descendants. Universal fears abound. Cannibalism's taboo, from Greek myths of Cronus to real events like the 1846 Donner Party, represents civilization's fragility. Victorian repression amplified this, an era of buttoned-up propriety where bodily urges were demonized, raw meat embodying the return of the repressed. Gender dynamics layer in Zamelia's vulnerability as widow highlights patriarchal predation, her transformation a loss of agency in a male-dominated world. Jungian shadows loom the hotel as collective unconscious, raw rituals evoking archetypes of the devouring mother or beast within. Occult elements connect to existential dread. The search for immortality through consumption, mirroring modern consumerism's empty promises. Intellectually, it probes authenticity, were visions supernatural or hysterical contagion, as in Salem witch trials. Connects to contemporary issues, ethical veganism rejecting meat's violence, food safety scares evoking tainted essences. Ominously, the story questions human nature's duality, civilization's thin veneer over savagery. It leaves us haunted in our traditions. What primal shadows lurk, waiting to feast? As we emerge from the depths of the Gilmore Hotel's nightmare, the chill lingers, a reminder that some shadows never fully dissipate. Elias Gilmore faded into myth, the hotel demolished amid flames that locals swore burned with an unnatural red hue. Yet, in Springfield's archives and oral histories, traces remain: families with unexplained aversions to cooked meat, sites where buildings fail to thrive, cravings that surface under stress or moons. Was the tradition a curse, a delusion, or a mirror to our own voracious souls? The raw meat endures as enigma. What we ingest shapes us, but what hungers define our essence. Ponder this as you turn out the light. See the shadow behind you may not be mere darkness, but an appetite, patient and eternal. Good night, listeners. Dream carefully, for the feast might call your name.